Hello, and welcome to Somerville Neighborhood News. Today is April 8th. I'm Colby Smallzell.
And I'm Peter Ballanon-Rosen. Somerville Neighborhood News is a community service production of SCATV, put together by staff, interns, and your neighbors. We bring you the news every 2 weeks, right here on Channel 3, and also on our website, scatvsomerville.org/SNN.
Tonight, our reporters bring you a preview of this year's Yum event, a glimpse of the Irish Film Festival, and also highlights from a symposium on net neutrality up at Tufts University.
We've also got a story on the rise in heroin overdoses and how Somerville's first responders are fighting back. A look at how pollution from Route 93 affects those living nearby, and we'll attend the event commemorating the 19th anniversary of Deanna Kremen's death.
But first, let's have a look at some news and upcoming events. The Board of Aldermen meetings and local newspapers are full of discussion on City Hall's decision to fund a youth football league after the board said it did not want the league in the budget. Pick up your local paper to learn the facts and decide what you think on the matter.
Here are 2 items related to some of our previous stories. As of last week, both the Massachusetts Senate and House of Representatives have agreed to raise the minimum wage. The movement for a higher minimum wage has been gathering steam nationwide. Last month, Connecticut became the first state to pass a bill guaranteeing $10.10 per hour.
Here's some more news related to issues we've covered. Back in our first newscast, we reported on a law called the Trust Act that would protect undocumented residents from unfair deportation. Last month, the proposed legislation was approved by the state's Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee, but is yet to become law. A similar bill passed in California and in several cities.
Want to attend an art auction, taste local food and brews, and help the Agassiz Preschool build up its scholarship fund? Head to 184 Summer Street on Saturday, April 12th from 2 to 5 p.m. for their Art for Education fundraiser.
Here's another event. No promise of free food, but you will get a taste of the streetscape improvements planned for the Central Broadway and Winter Hill neighborhood. It's at the Winter Hill Community School on Wednesday, April 16th. The 6:30 p.m. meeting will present plans and ask for residents' opinions. The city will provide translation and ASL interpreters on request. Write to Gregory Flanagan at gflanagan@reginavilla.com or call 617-357-5772, extension 18.
And now to the news. The Deanna Kremen cold case has made headlines for many years. On March 22nd, M. Wynn attended the ceremony marking the 19th anniversary of Kremen's death.
My name is Christine Kremen. I am Deanna Kremen's older sister. I was 18 when Deanna died. I will never forget the day my sister was murdered. It was the worst day of my life, which I had no idea how long it would continue to be the worst day of my life.
Deanna Kremen turned 17 just 3 days before she was brutally murdered. 19 years later, friends and family gathered to commemorate her death and to confirm that they are still looking for her killer.
6,900 days of not knowing what happened. What I know is that love and faith are always stronger than evil, and that we will bring this case to a just resolution and a successful conclusion. And that is our promise to all of you today.
On March 29th, 1995, Kremen was walking home from Broadway to Jake Street, but she never made it. Her body was found by grade schoolers early the next morning behind this senior apartment complex. Kremen had been strangled the night before.
So I've often asked myself, have we done enough? I don't know what that answer is. I know I want to continue to be side by side with the Kremen's family and with their friends. I know I want to pray with all of you, to pause with all of you. But the city police department, we're going to do more. We are now will be offering a $50,000 reward for information.
I was home in my bed, and detectives were in my house, and I had no idea what was going on. I thought Deanna broke her arm or something. And then my father came home. My father had to go identify the body, And I saw my dad, and he was a broken man. And my mom came home from work, and she lost it. And it was like I lost my entire family when Deanna died. I didn't just lose Deanna. My mom and dad broke up. They got a divorce. Everything fell apart. It was terrible. And weeks went by, months went by, and all of a sudden, like, it started clicking on me, like, nobody's been arrested for this. It just, it destroyed our family. Sorry, I'm trying to think.
So, of course, recently I've been looking at photos of Deanna because her birthday was Wednesday. This week is a tough week. And I really try not to let the grief overcome me and take over. But it will. And it gets stronger in this time of year. Today's the last day I saw my daughter alive 19 years ago. The last thing she said was, "I love you too, Mom." When I stand there and I look, this is all for Deanna.
Some evil person is living with this secret, and I don't know how they can go on for 19 years, but I think they should think to themselves, I've got to wait and with this for 19 years free. Now it's time for me to go do my time, give Deanna's family peace and closure and her friends, and let us move on with our life and get this off your conscience.
And there are 19 balloons. They say this too shall pass. They say grief eventually fades. But those sayings are of little comfort when you're living through such sad days. They say this time heals all, and this much I know is true. So hang in there, everybody, and together we'll see it through. Thank you, everybody. We love you, Deanna.
For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm M. Wynn.
19 years and still unsolved. The reward amount for any information that will lead to the prosecution of the murderer is now at $70,000. $50,000 from the city has been added to the already established $20,000 reward. Anyone with information should call the Somerville Police Department at 617-625-1600. Calls will be confidential. People can also text anonymous tips to tip 411, subject 617-SPD.
This next story is part of a series on affordable housing.
Yes, as part of my investigation into housing and gentrification in Somerville, I decided to take a look at environmental and health issues. A number of affordable housing options are right along Route 93. I joined an air monitoring team conducting research for Tufts about highway air pollution and its health impacts.
When we're in the field, we're typically just looking at the different pollutants that we measure in the RV, and also we count the number of particles in the atmosphere, which is a proxy for ultrafine particles. This is counting all of the particles in the air and giving us a value of particle number per volume, which is cubic centimeters. The route goes along Broadway and then in the 10 Hills area and just sort of around different areas near 93 and also further away to kind of get a contrast between the two. Here was when we drove by 93 the first time, and then this was when we were parked next to 93. So you can see in comparison to everything before it, it's a lot higher for a longer period of time. We're talking, down here, again, we were at 10,000, whereas over here now we're 40, 60, sometimes we get peaks of 80 and a little over 100,000 particles per cubic centimeter. So a lot of particles in a very small space.
Tufts University professor Doug Brugge has been heading up the community assessment study of highway air pollution for 6 years.
Ultrafine particles are very, very tiny particles, liquid or solid, suspended in air. So there's a wide range of health effects that have been associated with proximity to heavy traffic. Those studies are pretty consistently show increased risk of cardiovascular effects, asthma and other respiratory diseases. Recently, a couple of studies showing elevated prevalence of autism.
Wig Zamore, community researcher, gives traffic tours highlighting the effects of air pollution along highways.
That's a lot of air pollution. What's behind me is Interstate 93, moving from downtown Boston into Somerville and then through northeastern Somerville. Carries about 150,000 vehicles per day, and we're just at the very beginning of evening rush hour now, and it'll start to congest up. And every city in the U.S. that's the size of Boston has these issues where some neighborhoods, especially neighborhoods with density of recent immigrants, tend to be the neighborhoods that bear the pollution burden and the health burden of the regional transportation systems, the highways and the diesel rail. Somerville is almost uniquely diverse in its environmental justice population.
Environmental justice populations are the neighborhoods most likely to fall victim to dirty or dangerous environmental conditions.
Those areas are much richer in minority, low-income, and immigrant population than the cleaner areas. In Somerville, our largest public housing project, Mystic Housing, they're literally a sidewalk away from 200,000 vehicles a day.
My name is Kausar Jahan, and I have 4 children. I live here with my 4 children, and I work with Shape of Somerville at the farmers market. I'm the manager of farmers market. People here are disabled or like low income, so they need education, they need healthy food, they need money. They sent me Everett. I was living with another family, so it was hard to live with another family. She has kids, I have kids, so they always fight, and different culture. Since I applied for this housing, I had to wait for 1 year. Oh, it was like my dream come true. I bought my own house, like I can do whatever I want, I can cook whatever I want. Highway, one thing good is transportation, but other thing, I don't feel safe for my children. They should have quiet place and healthy place. I want to live in Somerville, somewhere else, but I don't have enough money to pay rent and bill. I don't think so I could live here other than this house.
As rents and home prices continue to rise in Somerville, for many people, living next to highways is the only option to stay in the city. But are the health impacts worth it? And is it fair that society's most vulnerable are the ones most subject to these dangers? For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Peter Balanon-Rosen.
I'm glad we covered that story. That air pollution study has been going on for a long time, but I never knew how they measured pollution. And I didn't make a connection between that and housing. A new affordable housing project just went up in that same neighborhood, didn't it?
Yes, St. Polycarp Village.
How can people learn more about this and maybe advocate for better transportation and health improvements in Somerville?
They should check out STEP, the Somerville Transportation Equity Partnership, at somervillestep.org. There will be one more segment in the housing series. Tune in on May 6th.
Now, here's a story that touches everyone in one way or another. Somerville may be publicized as a happy city, but there are plenty of people who don't share that feeling these days. Like many cities and states throughout the country, Somerville is awash in heroin and painkillers like oxycodone, codeine, and morphine.
And, as in other cities, Somerville residents and natives are overdosing and dying. 3 people originally from Somerville died in the past few weeks alone. That number is far below what is happening in Taunton, where over 60 people have died since January, but it's still too many. Somerville Neighborhood News Director Jane Regan takes a look at the epidemic and at how the city's first responders are taking steps to prevent drug-related deaths.
These men might look like drug users, but they're not.
This is the middle part that actually your drug, the Narcan, will fit into.
In fact, these syringes and the medicine they contain can save lives.
Hold the head down and go in, right? Squirt 1 milligram, squirt 1 milligram.
With unemployment for young adults high and the price of heroin low, Somerville, just like the rest of the country, has seen a rise in the use of heroin and other opioid painkillers. Earlier this month, Somerville police arrested a dealer in the city with 116 grams of heroin. The rise in heroin has also led to a rise in overdoses. 21 over the past 15 months, 7 of them fatal. But now, the city's firefighters and police will be able to save more lives. They're all being trained to use an overdose antidote that uses naloxone. It's sometimes called Narcan.
This is a wonderful drug that really helps people, gets them back quickly, and prevents death. We've been trying to get into the program, and recently through the help of Cambridge Health Alliance and a bunch of other people, our own Board of Health here in Somerville, we were able to set up a program with Cambridge Health Alliance where we have a medical control hospital, and we have a medical control doctor assigned to us.
Cataldo ambulance personnel are training firefighters and police to use the nasal antidote.
And that needle fits into there, so you screw it in. Narcan is an amazing drug with very few, if any, side effects. So what it gives, with the amazing increase in the amount of overdoses that we've seen in the last probably 10 years, you're able to treat people and treat them fast. And this drug is truly amazing and how quickly it can work. These people are given truly sometimes a second chance, whether they know it or not. They think, oh, I just did a little bit of this or whatever, sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. But, all of a sudden they have a second chance. It's amazing.
Heroin use doubled between 2007 and 2012, but that's not the only problem.
If you look at over-the-counter medications, the heroin is pretty much consistent. That's not changing that much. It's actually the over-the-counter ODs that are actually what's worse. A lot of the drugs are getting out more than they should. I think that a lot of the drugs are being prescribed in bigger quantities, to more people.
Lieutenant Michael Marino helped set up the fire department trainings. Also a nurse, he's seen many overdoses.
As a nurse, pain pills and prescription drugs are on the rise, and pain control, and you just don't have to have a track mark or a needle to overdose. And that's what's also so important to recognize. This epidemic of heroin in Massachusetts and all over the place. Unfortunately, just like anybody, I think everybody in this job could reach their arms out and at least have, not even, unfortunately, 1 degree of separation, know someone who was affected by an overdose or a death with the drug. And we've had 5 members on the job who've lost a family member or a friend to this. So I think it resonates deeply within this department to try to get out there and prevent it. So that's why everyone's been really attentive and hard charging and really, upbeat to try to get this done and get it going in Somerville. So I do personally know, 3 people that have lost their lives in Somerville that I grew up with.
Funny enough, in New England and specifically Massachusetts, our level of heroin overdoses are higher than the national average. So we're facing something actually that is probably on the leading trend of what we're seeing in the United States. So it's important that we get that drug out quicker and use it faster than some of the other places in the nation.
Our goal is to just get them the help they need. Narcan is an intervention, it's not a cure. And our hope is to get people quickly back, get the respiration back, and get them to a medical facility for proper care.
When it comes to fighting opioid overdoses, the Somerville Fire Department is ahead of the curve. Unfortunately, however, Massachusetts is also ahead of the curve when it comes to the use of those drugs. We'll keep you informed on this matter, and in the meantime, reporting for Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Jane Regan.
If you want to know more, or if you want to help someone with an addiction, contact the Somerville Health Department. Call Patty Contente at 617-625-6600, extension 4325, or email pcontente@somervillema.gov.
Next, a report from our sister station in Arlington about the recent symposium on net neutrality sponsored by SCATV and held at Tufts.
This is Aaron Walk here with Arlington Public News at Tisch Library at Tufts University, here to attend a forum on net neutrality.
On Tuesday, March 25th, Tufts University hosted a panel to discuss net neutrality, the practice that requires internet service providers to give equal access to lawfully created content online.
Why would you say that net neutrality is important?
Well, net neutrality is really important because it's all about internet access and whether or not the data that flows across the internet gets to all of us at the same speed, which is hopefully fast, and no matter what the content is. And pretty much net neutrality is about the internet as we now know it, and it's staying that way.
The FCC adopted net neutrality in 2010. This decision was overruled by the U.S. Federal Court of Appeals on January 14th. Which proponents of net neutrality say will lead to less internet freedom.
What do you think is the biggest danger that's possible to losing net neutrality?
Ultimately, the internet, taken to its extreme, could devolve into a kind of pay-for-play system where a few well-heeled content providers can dominate, what you actually get, and everything else you have to pay more for or is slowed down as a result. We're a long way from getting there, but that ultimately is the sort of the nightmare scenario.
Panelists also critiqued net neutrality, saying content that requires more broadband should have to pay for it.
What would you say were the best arguments against net neutrality?
Probably the best argument against net neutrality is that some content providers, like Netflix, they use a lot of broadband. And so, service providers like Comcast say, well, if you're going to use so much of our broadband, we're going to have to charge you more for that. And I can understand that from a business perspective. At the end of the day, what we need to do is we need to expand broadband access so that congestion isn't such a problem.
So the internet is actually a very complex ecosystem. And it's very difficult, but incredibly important to understand all of these interrelating business and consumer relationships that make the internet what it is.
I think we've come to rely on the internet for basically everything that we do. It's our platform for communicating with each other, talking to friends and family. It's how we get an education. It just provides so much of the drive behind our economy, our society, our culture. With net neutrality at risk and the idea that net neutrality could go away, we'll see the large companies that we write checks to every month to use the internet start to control all of the content that's there. So we don't want a future where Comcast is making decisions about where you can go online and what websites you can view. We want people to be in charge of those decisions and in the driver's seat.
Now, let's go to the Somerville Journal to see what's in this week's paper.
Hello, this week in the Somerville Journal, we'll be taking an in-depth look at what the recent heroin deaths have meant for the community. We'll be having an update on the search for a new police chief, and we'll also be examining efforts by the alderman and the mayor's office to create middle-class housing. You can read all about it at wickedlocal.com/Somerville, and you can follow us online at Ville Journal. You can always get in touch with me at datkinson@wickedlocal.com and by phone at 617-629-3385. 2 weeks ago, Somerville hosted the Irish Film Festival. Joe Lynch from Greater Somerville worked the red carpet for us.
I'm Joe Lynch for Somerville Neighborhood News, and we're here in Davis Square outside the historic Somerville Theater, site of the 2014 Irish Film Festival. Oscar and Irish Film Academy nominated films and actors are expected tonight, and the excitement is in the air. Tonight, we're also fortunate enough to have our very own Touch of Ireland with some of Somerville's illustrious residents of Irish descent and Irish born. Let's see what they have to say about the festival now.
The Irish history here in Somerville is one that you're well aware of. From the mid-1800s on, the Irish diaspora just ended up sending thousands and thousands of Irish families here to Somerville. So the city of Somerville is very proud to be able to host a very part of our tradition in our history.
14 years and going strong, Dawn. Third year in Somerville. Tell us about it.
Well, we love Somerville. It's our new home and has been for the last 3 years, and how great to be in the Somerville Theatre on its 100th birthday.
I am so pleased to be outside the Somerville Theater with actress Ruth McCabe. Ruth is one of the co-stars of the Oscar-nominated film Philomena. Ruth, congratulations. You're accepting an award tonight on your own behalf for the film Run and Jump.
Well, it's directed by Steph Green, who's actually American and came to Ireland to do an MA in film 12 years ago, and fell for the place hook, line and sinker. She has absolutely no Irish blood.
Patrick's claim to fame is really his dad and his uncle. That iconic picture at 30 Rockefeller Center, the name of that film is Men at Lunch. Patrick, tell us about your dad and your uncle.
Well, they came to the States back in the 20s.
And the Burren, one of the top 20 Irish pubs in America. Tommy, Irish Film Festival here in your turf.
It's brilliant to have it here, especially this year, because my father's film has been shown, Handing Down the Tunes, on Sunday at 5:30. It's a great honor. I'm delighted. I'm overwhelmed by that they've chosen the film. It's a lovely story of my father, how he grew up playing traditional Irish music in County Clare.
Springtime is here, and so are more festivals.
That's right. Last week, I got to try some of the city's great food and learn about the upcoming Yum Festival.
Yum is a celebration, really, of the diversity, the cultural diversity in the city. It's a way of celebrating all of the contributions that so many different immigrant groups have made and are making to the city.
Executive Director of the Welcome Project, Warren Goldstein-Gelb, shares how restaurants are selected for the festival taking place on April 10th.
So we choose in part by the diversity, the desire to have a diverse and eclectic group of restaurants. And then we just reach out to different restaurants and try to find owners who are excited about the idea of having their food and restaurants highlighted at this event.
Owner and chef at Aguacate Verde, Sylvia de la Sota, is a Yum veteran and is excited about meeting potential customers and giving the city a taste of her culture.
Aguacate Verde has participated in the Yum Festival for 3 years, and this year I'm looking forward to interact with new people in the community and to offer my dishes. Gordita, tacos, and rice and beans.
Aguacate Verde is one of 9 restaurants participating in the Yum Festival this year. The Kebab Factory is another. General Manager Jagmeet Singh says his dishes are not to be missed.
We'll be providing our world-famous chicken tikka masala. Best in the country, I'd say, yeah.
Singh also says the Yum Festival has had a positive impact on business in the past.
It's definitely brought more customers. It's broadened our reach, and it's allowed us to see what other foods are available in the city and how we can compete with them.
The Yum Festival is a great place to sample foods from around the world made by your neighbors. For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Colby Smallzell. Yum!
I'm jealous. I was riding around in a van measuring air pollution while you were eating at some of the best restaurants in the city.
Luck of the draw. Well, that wraps up this newscast. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back on April 22nd.
But don't just tune in once every 2 weeks. Check us out on Facebook and share your favorite segment. Or send a tweet at SCATV SNN. We welcome you to get involved with Somerville Neighborhood News.
What's happening on your block? Who's your neighborhood hero? What issues aren't being covered? Become a reporter or just send in your ideas. Call the SCATV studio at 617-628-8826 or write to news@scatvsomerville.org. I'm Colby Smallzell.
And I'm Peter Ballanon-Rosen. See you around the neighborhood.